Konnichiwa, Samurai James here. In this video, I want to mention a book that's coming up for pre-order that's going to be available in December. That'll be the third part in the English Armour trilogy. So who writes these books? Well, that's Dr. Tobias Capwell. He's the curator of arms and armour over at the Wallace Collection in England, which is one of their large medieval weapons and armour collections. However, beyond that, he has also owned multiple suits of armour. He jousts in them. He does foot combat. You may have seen the very popular and very well-known black and gold armor that I'm going to put up over here. Or maybe this really cool Italian armor that I'm going to put up over here. And that Italian armor with the mail hanging off of it down at the knees and everything was actually part of my inspiration for when I got my own Milanese suit of armor over here, which I'm going to be sending out for a little bit of adjustment for the sizing on it. But I'm also going to have it modified a little bit to have the mail hang down from the knees and everything else, which is a very Italian thing to do. But this video is about English armor, right? Right. So, why are there 3 books in the series? Well, the first one covers 1400 to 1450. The next one covers 1450 to 1500. And then the third one will wrap up the series for that. Now, if you're a bit into medieval armor, you're probably thinking, what exactly is English armor? I know there's Gothic armor, and I know there's Italian armor. Well, let's take a little pop quiz here. How many pieces of English armor do you think you've seen when you've made any visits to museums back from when you were a little kid all the way to an adult? I'm going to count to 3, and then let me know your answer. 1, 2, 3. Reading your mind, it's 0. You might have said a different number, but the actual number is 0. There are no definitively proven surviving pieces of armor that can actually be linked to be English. Now, the content of these books is wonderful. There are color photos all over the place. There are line drawings. There are details of effigies. All the things that we have that basically show what English armor was. Now, the line drawings are, of course, done modern. However, some of them are done by some of the top people in the armoring field, such as Robert McPherson and Jeff Wasson. You'll also see full color pages like this that have the effigies. There's information about them over here on the side. This is also a very thick book. And again, this is just one of the 3, so I'm going to hold this up so you can see just how thick and heavy this is. Is the book expensive? Yes, it's more expensive than a normal book. It's up for pre-order right now for, if you're in the US, 130 Great Britain pounds, which I think should out to about 145 bucks with the current conversion rate. But that gets you a 10-pound discount if you get in on the pre-order before it's actually released. Now, something like this, with the size of it, the information that's in it, if you're interested in English armor, this is certainly something that would be well worth that money for you if you can afford it. The black and gold armor that I put up in the earlier photos here, that's actually an English style armor, and it has specific things that you don't see in other armors, such as where the cuirass and the fald, meaning the breastplate and the piece that hangs down, the fald and the breastplate, those are actually 2 separate pieces. On this armor and on my Italian style, those are connected. Now, the lower placard to the Italian comes off, but in the English style, it's actually here that it comes apart. So there's a lot of very unique things to the English armor, and I really enjoyed reading about them in these books and figuring out what all that sort of stuff was. It's been wonderful, wonderful resource, and I'm really glad that I got in on the first 2, and I'm glad I caught this third one when it's coming up for pre-order. And also in this first book, here's some of the actual making of the black and gold armor as Dr. Capwell had it commissioned, made, custom fit to him so that he could not only read about it and see what it looked like in the artwork and the effigies, but also put it on, experience it. Again, he jousts, he fights on the ground, he's a curator at the museum. He's well versed in being able to evaluate what he's actually wearing and doing and seeing if what this looks like in the artwork would actually translate into something that looks like in real life. It's very rare to see these sort of behind the scenes, in progress making photos. Sure, we get some of them now on Facebook and everything from the other armors, but most of the time they're putting up what their finished products are. So this was a really cool look at seeing how it's actually made and put together and how it gets tweaked and revised along the way. Now to go back to that black and gold armor again, since a lot of people are familiar with it, if you've seen the pictures, you've probably seen him wearing it. You might not have seen the pictures where it's actually apart to see what the separate pieces are. And again, you can glean all that from right here within the book. Here's the upper placard, the lower placard, the fald, and the tassets underneath. And again, to compare to something like my Milanese here, this would all be one piece where the placard and the fald are riveted together. So the only thing that's separate is the strap here for the upper portion of the cuirass and the lower part below. So it's a two-piece assembly rather than multiples. Something else that's actually mentioned in here, which is a neat little historical fact, is that in some of the inventories, they're actually put in as separate pieces. So the upper part of the cuirass and the lower part of the cuirass are separate pieces. One more example here from the book, such as the arm vambrace here. It's actually one piece from the shoulder, the top of the shoulder, all the way down to the wrist. And you can see here that it has the attached spalder to it, but note the actual proportions of it. You can see the majority of the upper arm here. The spalder itself is very small cop and has smaller lames. Now this is completely different from what we see in most modern reproductions, where you might see a little bit of the upper arm and a big spalder that's coming down all the way, covering most of it. So it's great that it goes into the details like this, showing the proportions so that you can take a look at this, see what the historical stuff looks like, see what the reproductions are, and be able to spot some of those common problems. Because we see so many reproductions compared to originals, we start to associate what those reproductions are in our mind, and then losing track of what the actual real historical piece is. So again, while this book might be a little bit expensive, you know, it's such a wonderful point of reference. And if you're serious about the history, the research, learning what armor really was like and everything else, I definitely recommend it. I'm going to drop a link underneath it here for you to get in on the pre-order. If you don't have enough cash for the pre-order, especially with holidays coming up, you can always catch it after the pre-order. But don't wait too long, because after a while, books like this go out of production and they're really hard to find. I myself have seen some other armoring books that were around this price range, $100, $150 back in the day when they were published, that are selling for $500, $600, $700 because they've been out of production for a decade. So if it's something you want to get, definitely jump on it and grab it. You know, I myself have no association with the publisher or Dr. Capwell. He's been an inspiration for me in many ways for my own pursuits into medieval armor and medieval interests. So when I saw that this was up for pre-order, I thought, you know, I really enjoyed the first two books for this. And one thing that he mentioned is that if we can't get enough for the pre-order, I don't know if it's actually going to happen or not, but he was looking to get enough people because this is a smaller publisher and we need to have a certain amount in for the pre-orders. So, you know, that's also extra motivation. If you want to get it, go ahead and get it now to make sure we can get it produced and we can wrap up the trilogy on this. That's going to be it for me. So this is Samurai James saying thanks for watching and sayonara.